नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's discussion. So we have been discussing from the third verse of Manasiksha. So we will chant the verse once and then we will see what we have been discussing. So in this verse, main theme that is being discussed is it possible to attain Vraja Bhakti as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give through Diksha and Siksha from any other Sampradaya? Is it possible? So that is what we have been discussing. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami says, Yadi Cheravasam Vrajabhuvi Saragam Pratijano Yuvadvandvam Tachet Paricharitumara Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganam Iha Tasyagrajamapi Sputam Premna Nityam Smaranamatadattvam Shrunumana. So he says, my dear mind, please listen. Yadicher avasam vraja bhuvi saragam pratijanur. If you desire to live in the land of Vraja, Bhauma Vrindavan, pratijanu, life after life, saragam, and we tried to understand what is the meaning of raga. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had elaborately discussed what is this raganuga bhakti, ragatmika bhakti, which is followed by um, the Vrajavasis. He explained what is that ragam, that spontaneous love that the Vrajavasis have for Krishna. If you desire that kind of love, and if you desire to eternally stay in Vrindavan and serve Krishna in that particular mood, then he says, Tada sputam smara, then you should clearly remember and offer obeisances to Swarupam, Shri Rupam, Saganamiha Tasyagrajamapi. Then you have to worship or you have to offer obeisances and clearly remember the teachings of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, Srila Rupa Goswami, and his associates in Vrindavan, Srila Sanatan Goswami, and so on. Like that, he says. So basically, the essence is that it is very rare that someone may follow the teachings of some other sampradaya and still get Vraja Bhakti, because generally the other sampradayas have a very strong mood of awe and reverence. Uh, so therefore, their teachings necessarily will not nourish the mood of entering Vrindavan. So that is what he is indicating here. So Diksha or Siksha from other Sampradaya may not necessarily work. In some cases, someone may have Diksha. So many times it may be true with our own Sampradaya, or it may be true in other Sampradayas, where the Diksha is a very, very ordinary formality. I have seen many cases in, at least in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, that is the, while taking Diksha, that is the one and only time they meet the Guru, and the Guru meets the disciple. Okay. So certain do's and don'ts are mentioned, but it is not really emphasized, and there is no hearing from the talks of the Guru. But I am sure it was not like this before, because I remember my mother sharing about her own grandfather, my mother's grandfather, which means my own great grandfather, who was like uh, uh, throughout the day, any free time, he would be sitting in his Guru's ashram and hearing him speak Krishna Katha. So there was that strong attachment to Guru, and literally, my mother has shared that the day his Guru passed away, I mean, he was like unconsolable, and he was so, and no one had ever seen my grandfather cry for the loss of any other relative as much as he had cried and lamented the loss of his own guru. So it's not that that kind of an attachment is not there in other sampradaya, but in today's day and age, generally, I have not seen. Maybe it is there. I don't profess to say that I have seen all Sri Vaishnavas. Actually, I have not at all. So there are Sri Vaishnavas also who may be very much attached to their gurus. I don't deny that. But the point is that many do get initiated without knowing much about Diksha, without hearing much from the Guru. So in such cases, the initiation becomes very much a formality, but still one can take Siksha from other, from let's say Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, if they feel inspiration, even though they might have taken Diksha. But they should not reject their Diksha, because that Diksha rejection would mean that you are rejecting that sampradaya or that guru to be non-bona fide. Unless we know that for sure, we cannot do that. So Siksha we can always take. Siksha we can take from Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So he says that if you want to stay in Vrindavan and with loving attachment serve Radha and Krishna, then you have to follow the teachings of the Goswamis. This is the clear-cut instruction that Srila Raghunath Das Goswami is indicating here. And we saw in detail about what this okay, just hold on for a second. I think I opened the wrong file. I will just check. Just hold on for a second. Yeah, I think I opened the wrong file. Just give me 1 minute. I will just open the right file. I should have opened the Zoom version. Yeah. So in this connection, we had discussed from the commentaries of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So we will now, and we also had discussed from the commentaries of Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj, which more or less echoed the same points that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had mentioned. And we also discussed from Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj's commentary, where Sachinandan Swami Maharaj talks about, you can't keep digging here and there. If you want the real rasa, then you choose one sampradaya and keep digging there deeper and deeper, rather than spending time digging at various places, little here, little there, and that is not going to give you any result. So Maharaj says, a culture of nourishment is needed if you wish to develop something. He says that it is very important, if we want to develop something very special, then we must provide the right kind of nourishment. Okay. So we saw that we must learn to put a living culture around our lives so that we will nourish what we want to attain. So he talks about that living culture, and we try to understand what that living culture means. Okay. It means the right kind of people, the right lifestyle, the right ambience, right guidance, right books, the right kind of sadachar, all that the nectar of instruction talks about. That is like the right kind of living culture around us. So when that is there, then we get the appropriate kind of nourishment. Then we get the appropriate kind of nourishment. The information, the habits, the way of dealing with each other, eating styles, everything should be conducive for what we want to reach. Otherwise, Maharaj says, taking just a little bit of Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, this medicine for Kali Yuga may not necessarily work. Because Bhajana Kriya is one, but what about Anukulyasa Sankalpo Pratikulyasa Varjanam? Accepting what is favorable for practicing that path. That is also a very integral part of practice of devotional service, right? And then he gave the example of that Ayurvedic doctor who could not cure a particular boy, even though he was a very successful doctor, but his medicines were not working on that particular boy. So he got very curious. So he went to the house of that boy and found out where he was working. And he observed that this boy was swimming in a um, container filled with chemicals, and he was swimming, and through that swimming he was trying to mix those chemicals, which is very strange actually. So he understood that the reason why he was not getting cured was, even though he was taking the medicine, but his ambience and his the situation around him, the lifestyle was not very conducive for the medicine to work, right? So like that he says. So yes, you can chant Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, but if you don't have the proper culture, the proper examples and the proper role models in your life, Vraja Bhakti may not come to you. Bhakti may come, right? So if our role models are not the six Goswamis, if they are acharyas from other sampradaya, still we will get pure bhakti. There is no doubt about it. But we may not necessarily get Vraja Bhakti. If that is what is our aspirations, we should have the right role models. Therefore, Raghunath Das Goswami very clearly says that if we are eager to reside in Vrajadam and execute service on the platform of bhakti with love, if we yearn for direct service of Shri Radha and Krishna, then we must have the right examples, he says. So, yeah. So then he says that clearly remember and offer obeisances to Shri Swarup, Shri Roop and his associates in Vrindavan, and to Shri Rupa's elder brother, Shri Sanatan. So then Maharaj says that we have to have an alliance to a spiritual school. It could be Madhva Sampradaya, Shri Sampradaya, Pushtimarg, ISKCON, whatever it may be. Then he says, but drill at one place. Don't keep drilling. Little bit of Madhva I will drill for some time, little bit of Shri Sampradaya I will drill for some time, little bit of Pushtimarg I will drill for some time, and little bit of ISKCON. No, that will not work actually. We may not even understand the scriptures properly. We have to stay with the school and dig deeper and deeper. That's what Maharaj was mentioning, if you remember. Otherwise, water will not come. So then we will keep, okay, let me drill somewhere else. Let me drill now at Rasa Bhakti times 10 and so on. Maharaj explains that. So basically, we should have patience and chastity. Chastity to one sampradaya and patience to keep drilling at that place. And the third important point, which is actually proper Sambandha Gyan. Proper Sambandha and Abhideya Gyan. This is very important. Not just patience with proper knowledge. Okay. When to expect what? This is very important. We should know when to expect what. So otherwise we will have unrealistic expectations, right? So he says, stay with the line of Gaurang Mahaprabhu and drill deep. That way we will find a proper environment, proper minerals, and receive the flower of bhakti. So this was the essence of Bhakti, Srila Sachinandan Swami Maharaj. Then we started discussing from Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. So Maharaj says that this Manas Siksha gives a paddhati or a step-by-step methodology to overcome the internal obstacles and gradually develop Krishna Prem. So he says that if we follow these recommendations step by step and try to apply them in our lives, success is guaranteed. So we should not just read and hear, but if we follow them and apply them step by step, then he says success is guaranteed. So he says that there are so many important things, but the most important thing is at the end of our life, we have to evaluate how much how much we have managed to develop attachment towards Krishna, because everything else is temporary and it will go away. So therefore there is no point developing attachment to that. But how much we have developed attachment to Krishna, he says that is the most important thing. And he says, and for some reason we discussed, we will see how everything else slips through our fingers, and we discussed about how the success of any activity depends on these 5 things. But for a devotee, his cheshta directly translates into success. This we were discussing last time. How for an ordinary person, karma, if karma is strong, how much ever endeavor he may put, he may not have the result. Endeavor is not, success is not proportional to endeavor if karma is strong. So success is not directly proportional to endeavor if karma is strong. But in bhakti, success depends only on sincerity of purpose and sincere endeavor. Success is directly proportional to endeavor. So this is true only in bhakti, and it is not true in any other process. It is dependent on karma, and there is no way you can know what your karma is. How much it is dependent on karma, we cannot know. So we cannot know how much the success depends on endeavor. So there may not be any correlation at all if it is completely determined by karma. So therefore, one should not gamble away one's life. So therefore, one should not gamble away one's life by engaging in activities in which success, we do not know how much success is connected to endeavor. Therefore, Krishna, Narada Muni tells, Tasyeva hetoh prayate takovido nalabhyate yad brahmatam uparyatah. Tallabhyate dukkavadanyata sukam kalena sarvatra gabira ramhasa. He is not indicating that your endeavor does not matter at all. He says that how much your endeavor matters, you have no means of understanding it. That's what he's indicating here. So Raghunath Das Goswami specifically says here that if you have 2 desires, that is to live with love in Vraja, life after life, and directly serve Radha and Krishna, then you should sputam, mode of approaching our acharyas in their writings is sputam, clearly, nityam, incessantly, and premna, with love. Right? So these 3 points Maharaj mentioned, that 3 things are very important. Clearly, incessantly, with love, you should approach the acharyas and their writings. So then it is possible. So if you have these 2 desires, you have to constantly, with love and very clearly, remember Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami and their writings. Okay. Then he says, several important questions arise which we will try to answer. So the first question that Maharaj addresses is that, why does Raghunath Das Goswami say Prati Janu for many lifetimes? Why does he say that? Okay. Maharaj says that, oh, but we have been promised that in this lifetime, if you practice, then immediately you may go back home, back to Godhead. But why does he say Prati Janu? He says, Yadicher Avasam, if you want to stay life after life, which means he says that actually a pure devotee does not even desire to escape material suffering. Rather, he is happy to live in Bhauma Vrindavan only, undergoing birth, death, old age, and disease, but still trying his best, being completely satisfied in the opportunity to serve Radha and Krishna with great love. So that's what he's indicating here. Narayana para sarve nakutaschana bibyati. So out of their humility, they think that I don't have any merit to be in the spiritual world. Let me stay in this material world. Only that, like that they feel. But another understanding is that devotees who know the glories of Bhauma Vrindavan, actually they sometimes prefer Bhauma Vrindavan even over Goloka Vrindavan. We saw that how the complete spectrum of rasas, especially feelings of separation and the feelings of anxiety in the in the presence of a demon, these are more realistically and completely experienced in Bhauma Vrindavan, even more than Goloka Vrindavan. We saw this last time. Okay, and Maharaj gave the example of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, how despite severe pain, when during his last days, he was in such an agonizing pain, but still His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj would sit next to him, and they would discuss Krishna Katha, and after a few hours, then Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would be smiling, and he said, I have never felt so good in my life, like that. And in fact, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj shares that Maharaj said that His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj said that I would never exchange the position that I am in with anyone. Like that, he was sharing. So he says Raghunath Das Goswami is drawing this picture because he is ready to take birth and to die, to be sick and to suffer here on earth as long as it is in Vrindavan. In this way, he glorifies Vrindavan and Prema itself, which makes a person willing to take birth again and again, because the happiness of Prema is so intense that it overshadows any material pain. Okay, and then he quoted from Shad Goswami Ashtakam, where they were like in Vrindavan and shouting, He Radhe Vrajade Vikecha Lalite He Nanda Suno Kuta Shri Govardhana Kalpapada Patale Kalindi Vanye Kuta Goshanta Viti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedair Mahavihpalau Vande Rupa Sanatanav Raghuyugau Shri Jiva Gopalakau. So they are shouting, Hey Radharani, where are you? Hey Lalita Devi, where you are? Oh Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, where you are, like that. So they are running here and there, filling Vrindavan with their cries. Are we willing to live like that in Vrindavan, life after life? Raghunath Das Goswami says, Pratijanu, that he is ready to take his birth again and again because he has experienced happiness in Vrindavan. Maharaj says, we can also experience this happiness. Such is the answer to the first question. So this is the first question, Pratijanu. Why Pratijanu? Why life after life? And the second question, and the most important question, is answered by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation of this verse. What is that question? Why does Raghunath Das Goswami mention Swarupam Shri Rupam? Why not Nityananda, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srivas Thakur, Advaitacharya, and like that? Why he is not talking about the Panchatattva? He says that they broke open the storehouse of Krishna Prem and distributed it. Okay. So, but what about for the future generations? Is there a process of how they can break open the storehouse of love and taste it? Right. So that actually Rupa Goswami and his followers and his associates, they have given through books how you can step by step practice sadhana bhakti and reach till the stage of prema. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. So he has established the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this world through his writings. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam. This verse written by Swarup Damodar Goswami describes Lord Chaitanya and his 5 features. However, none of them are mentioned in Raghunath Das Goswami's 3rd verse. On the one hand, these are the 5 tattvas who came to give us love of God, yet Raghunath Das Goswami does not tell his mind to remember them. Not that he does not want to remember them, definitely he does remember them, but mm, he came, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha. So there were 2 reasons for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's descent. One, he came to enjoy the prema himself, and then he came to distribute it also. He did enjoy the prema himself, but in distributing prema, he did it through the writings of the 6 Goswamis. So only through the Goswami's writings we get to understand what is it that the Panchatattva were enjoying. So if the writings of the Goswamis were not there, then it would have been difficult. So the most important thing that they did was to explain spiritual experience. We saw that how in Bhakti Rasam Sindhu this is described in great detail. After all, we want the same love to be burning in our hearts in such a way that nothing else will be burning there. But how? By following their writings. They have given us the roadmap or guidebook to these feelings, explaining how spiritual emotions can be attained, how one emotion leads to the other, and what causes the emotions in the first place. All these things are explained by the Acharyas in their writings. This is what Nityananda Prabhu did not do, but not because he had a mission of his own. He gave people the holy name. He did not explain what we should feel or how the holy name should work in our hearts. That he did not say. So I think this is where we ended our discussion last time. So at this point, I will pause for a few seconds to see if, based on our previous discussion and what we have recapped today, if there are any quick comments, questions, discussions before we move to today's discussion, we can take for a few seconds. If you have anything, you can please raise your hands. I'll just wait for some time to see if someone has something to share. Okay, since there are no further comments, questions, so we will move on. So we were discussing about how the Panchatattva distributed it, enjoyed it, but for the posterior, they didn't leave a paddhati. They didn't leave a guidebook which would explain what one can follow and actually a roadmap so that a sadhaka can practice it and attain that same prema which the Panchatattva were enjoying. So that that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left to the Goswamis, and through their writings the Goswamis actually established this. So, and Nityananda Prabhu did not do, but not because he had a mission of his own. For instance, in Lochandas Thakur's song Akrodha Paramananda, he sings that Nityananda Prabhu goes from house to house, knocking on every door and holding a straw in his mouth, says, "Do you want to buy me? Chant the holy name. You chant the holy name and I can be purchased by you." Having said this, he then falls in the dust and starts crying and rolling about it, his hair standing on end. This is what he did. He let people see and feel a spiritual experience, and he gave the main method to attain that experience. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He gave people the holy name. He did not explain what we should feel or how the holy name should work in our hearts. That he did not explain. At a certain level, we can just chant the holy name, without thinking about anything, without knowing what it stands for, without understanding all these signs, without realizing who Krishna is. But sooner or later, we may get lost. That is the problem. Huh? But sooner or later, we may get lost. Huh? Hmm? So that is why Sambandha Gyan is very important. Hmm? Even if we start feeling something, we may not understand what it is or what the next step is. Huh? What I'm experiencing, is it genuine emotion, or is it ratyabas, or is it some sahajiya feeling? So unless we know the signs as explained by the acharyas, how are we to confirm, how are we to be sure that it is not something inappropriate? How do we know for sure that it is a bona fide emotion? We cannot actually. We can get lost in the spiritual experience. For our advancement, we very much depend on how clearly we understand where we are going. This is very important. So that's what he says. So for our advancement, we very much depend on clearly how we understand where we are going. Sometimes even in ISKCON, we have various points of view. Now he is coming directly to the point of ISKCON. Okay. One perspective is that there is no need of much ado to attain Vraja. People may say, why Vrindavan, Vrindavan? That is why you are talking so much about Vrindavan. Just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There is no need to do anything else. We must just dedicate ourselves to the holy name. Okay. So this is one point of view. Don't think too much. Don't read too much. Just focus on chanting the holy name. We must just knock on every door and shout to them, holding a straw in our mouth or a book in our hand. You rogues, chant the holy name, otherwise you will go to hell. Okay, of course, some of us may do like this. And sometimes we dance ecstatically and then get up and go on and knock on a door again. This is the method, and we should have absolute faith in it. This is what some people say. But we also need to know the spiritual signs so that eventually we come to Vraja. That is why in one of the previous verses, it is mentioned, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akuti Tabe Hama Buja Bose Yugala Piriti, he says. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akuti. Akuti means attachment. So Rupa Raghunatha Pade, Srila Prabhupada writes, attachment to their writings. So when we have attachment to their writings, not attachment means before attachment we should know what they have written and try to understand what they have written. Then we may develop attachment to what they have written. He says, Tabe Hama Heribo se Yugala Piriti. So then I can understand what is the love of Radha and Krishna. Okay. So it is only through the writings. Lord Chaitanya infused the holy name with prema, and when we hear the holy name, we feel this love. From the very beginning, our hands may stand on end and our tears may flow. A good example is when a new product is being released on the market, it is often given away for free. A company I once saw in Sweden had marketers handing out free samples of its new product. People were taking these and some were repeatedly going up for more. In this way they were given a taste of the new item. Similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Prema avatar, came and brought prema with him and began distributing it for free. Although prema is free, it is absolutely free only at the beginning, right? When a very powerful incarnation comes, definitely while they are there, there will be lot of kripa siddhas. So, and he of course descends with many nitya siddhas also. So these are eternally perfect people. So one thing is, so he comes with nitya siddhas, and because they are very powerful, there will be generation of many kripa siddhas also. Narayani chant and dance, and suddenly Narayani starts dancing and chanting. Or while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is traveling to South India, then whomever comes in touch with him, they get Krishna Prem. In this way, there is a generation of lot of kripa siddhas, because there is a powerful presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. But he says, although prema is free, it is free only in the absolute beginning. We are given this small bottle of prema and we are told, drink a little, you will like it. Okay, and we do like it. But then we are told, now you have to shell out and pay the price. Now we must work on our anarthas and engage in sadhana. So that we say, oh, when the anarthas go away by practice of sadhana bhakti, then you can get prema. So that's what we understand later. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the most merciful avatar. He gave prema to everyone, and each and every one of us has experienced prema. From the very beginning, our path is based on vidhi, but not raga. Vidhi, but on raga. So this is a very important point. We have discussed this many times, right? Even though we practice Vaidhi Bhakti, but that Vaidhi Bhakti is actually Raganuga Bhakti. So it has Goloka Bija. Okay. Even our Vaidhi Sadhana, has this Goloka Bija. It is not Vaikunta Bija, right? So therefore, when we practice it very quickly, over a period of time, it develops into, it naturally and organically develops into Raganuga Sadhana only. He gave us this prema, but at the same time, he sent Rupa Goswami to explain to us the obstacles that we will encounter on this path, because on any spiritual path, we will be besieged by a dark night. So he gave us this prema, but at the same time, he sent Rupa Goswami to explain to us the obstacles that we will encounter on this path. Because like on any spiritual path, we will be besieged by a dark night. And that dark night is actually anarthas. So this is anarthas, obstacles. So he sent Rupa Goswami to help us understand how we can accomplish this anartha nivritti. The dark night of the soul is when despair brings us down, when it gets tough, when we are unable to understand what is going on, why this taste that we felt is now gone, where it has gone and why. So we do have these questions, right? So why am I feeling so down? Why am I not feeling the inspiration to chant? What happened to my taste for hearing? Why am I not feeling enthusiastic to associate with these devotees? We do have these questions. And who explains this? Rupa Goswami. To guide us, Rupa Goswami wrote an amazing guide to the spiritual emotions, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, explaining how they should evolve in our hearts. So interestingly, today we started a Bhakti Shastri course. I mean, we didn't start a Bhakti Shastri course. It started long time, about a month back. And today we started Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu for them. So today morning, so already 6 hours Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu I just completed. So, and um, so it was really nice. So, and here he's indicating that he wrote an amazing guide to the spiritual emotions. It took 22 years actually for Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami. Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami. It took them. Recently, I met a man in his early 60s who had been practicing Krishna consciousness for a couple of years. Okay, he got introduced to it little late. Hmm. So he told me, sometimes I chant 16 rounds and I'm eager to quickly finish these 16 rounds so that I can chant the holy name properly. So he said, because to chant 16 rounds is a must, I must do it. And I'm eager to quickly finish them so that after that I can what this devotee was sharing with Maharaj. So I tried to chant my 16 rounds quickly so that after that, because 16 rounds is my commitment, it is my duty. He says, I don't want to just chant because it's my duty. I want to chant because chant freely with love. So he tries to complete his 16 rounds quickly so that he can chant the extra rounds with, uh, out of love and freely. He continued, I chant and chant, I chant a lot, and then it starts. So he's sharing with Maharaj. I chant and chant, I chant a lot, and then it starts. I look forward to the moment when I can chant just because the heart wants to do it. All and chanting, all of a sudden I feel tears welling in my eyes. Sometimes suddenly a sad melody comes to me that I have never heard before. When I hear it, tears begin to flow from my eyes. And then he stopped and said, this must be Abbas, right? I was told that what I feel is Abbas or Ratyabas or Bhavabas. So he was sharing all this with Maharaj. He said that, I chant and chant, and at some point I chant because the heart wants to do it. And at all of a sudden, tears start flowing from my eyes. And then I suddenly hear a sad melody, uh, and the tears begin to flow from my eyes. And then he asked Maharaj, Maharaj, this must be Ratya Bas, right? I must just be. And Maharaj says, clearly he does not know what Abhas is, but he said, this Abhas comes to me and makes the tears flow from my eyes. And I do not know where that melody comes from. I once sang it and I was told that it sounds like some Muslim melody, a very poignant one. No one appreciated it. But I know it comes from there, from Krishna. Like that he was sharing with Maharaj. When I hear it, all of a sudden it comes by itself. I have not invented it. I do not remember anything. I just remember that Krishna is God and I am there next to him. So this is what he was sharing with Maharaj. I don't know, Maharaj. I'm not imagining it, but just that it comes to me. And people say that it must be some abhas, it must be just a reflection. It is not real. But then Maharaj says, when I sat there with him listening to all this, I thought, what? Abhas? It is not Abhas. He is an uninitiated bhakta, but he has bhava in his heart. This is what Maharaj says. So he says, this is not Abhas. Huh? Because if you see, uh, uh, if you read from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Abhas, this Ratyabhas means the person clearly has material motivations. So he has either desire for mukti or bhukti. That is what is Ratyabhas. Pratibimba Ratyabhas or Chaya Ratyabhas. But here, when a devotee experiences this, he says that this is not Ratyabhas. So Maharaj was so touched. Oh, here is an uninitiated devotee, and he has bhava in his heart. And Prabhupada, as early as 1970s, 71, 72 maybe maximum. So he had told Tamal Krishna Maharaj that this Yamuna, she's at the stage of bhava, like that Prabhupada had told. So about Yamuna Mataji. So, and here Maharaj is observing an uninitiated devotee, but very, very sincere. Which uninitiated devotee would, after 16 rounds, chant and chant and chant and chant, keep on chanting like that, with tears in his eyes. So this is certainly not Ratyabhas. That's what Maharaj is telling here. In fact, we should not think that bhava is somewhere far away. We have all felt a small sample of bhava, he says. So he says that we have all felt a small sample of bhava, as I said, but Rupa Goswami came to explain to us what it is, because otherwise we can get confused very easily. Like this devotee was telling, oh, no, it was just Ratyabhas. But in reality, it was not Ratyabhas. It was actually real bhava. Tears will flow and we won't know where they are from, whether it is abhas or true tears. Rupa Goswami has created this amazing book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is a guide to the realm of spiritual emotions. This is why we must remember Rupa Goswami with focus. Sputam. So, Sputam Premna Nityam Smaranama Tatatvam Nanumana. So, Rupa Goswami will explain. He writes such a long section on this Ratyabhas actually. To remember him clearly means to remember what he taught us. This is the meaning. To remember him clearly means to remember what he taught us and understand the way, so we do not get lost again in the forest of material life. That's what he's indicating here. Bhakti Ratnakar is a book on the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism and the final years of Raghunath Das Goswami life. Okay, before we read Raghunath Das Goswami's life, about Raghunath Das Goswami's life, I will pause for a few seconds to see if there are any quick comments, discussions based on what we discussed the last maybe 10-15 minutes. I will just wait to see if any hands are up. Okay. So, because there are no hands up, we will continue our discussion. So, we will read from the Bhakti Ratnakar what it says about life of Raghunath Das Goswami in the final years of Raghunath Das Goswami. So he says, the account begins by stating that the feelings he was experiencing while living on the banks of Radha Kund defy description. Okay, we cannot understand what exactly he was feeling. The feelings defy descriptions. He was always feeling the pain of separation from Krishna, a fire burning him from the inside. He was swimming in tears and rolling in the dust as he constantly cried, "Where are you, Sri Swarup Damodar, Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatan?" He was repeating these three names because they are a treasure for all Gaudiya Vaishnavas. In Narottam Das Thakur's Bhajan Lalsa Mai Prarthana, he also sings Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akuti. You see, we saw the same verse. When will I be so eager to understand the words of Rupa and Raghunath, so that by their virtue, the treasure of love of Radha and Krishna and the understanding of this love will awaken in me? So constantly, Narottam Das Thakur was following in the footsteps of Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami would constantly chant the names of Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami. And Narottam Das Thakur was chanting the names of Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akoti, Kabe Hama Buja Bose Yugala Piriti. So only then I can understand what love of Vrindavan is. Like that. In fact, even ordinary love is very difficult to understand. So Maharaj quotes from one of the Russian poets, Pushkin, a great authority in mundane love, used to speak about it. So he says, even with ordinary love, it is impossible to understand how it appears and disappears, and what causes and what destroys it. What can then be said of understanding the love between Radha and Krishna? But at the same time, such an understanding is our goal. Okay. So, what then can be said of the understanding the love between Radha and Krishna? But at the same time, such an understanding is our goal. Okay. Also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared on earth and he has made that love possible and achievable. Of course, sometimes the goal seems very lofty and almost unreachable. Nevertheless, he says it is achievable. Therefore, this third verse tells us, so how it is achievable? So how is that love achievable? Through the writings of Rupa and Raghunath. Therefore, this third verse tells us that after we have cleared pride from our mind, Sada Dambam Hitva, we should meditate on Swarup, Sri Rupa and Sanatan Goswamis, because it is only through them that we can understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and truly understand the meaning of the holy names. Like that. In itself, the holy name contains a powerful impetus for change. So, holy name itself is powerful. We hear the holy name and we hear that the holy name is God Himself, and we realize that we can no longer live as we lived before, right? After we hear this, we understand that, oh, I can't live that same sinful life anymore, because we have heard about the glories of the holy name. There are books like the Bhagavad Gita, and there are teachings and words that carry this impetus in themselves. I must not live like this anymore. I must transform my life. So this is what Bhagavad Gita teaches us, or any other book, Srimad Bhagavatam also. Sometimes people get this feeling of needing to change at the first sound of the holy name, perhaps seeing devotees on Harinam. I don't know if any one of you have had this experience. The first time you saw a devotee or you heard Harinam, we got a feeling, I can no longer live like this. I have to change. Live like this. I should change. So many times we may feel like that. Sometimes people underestimate the holy name as a form of spiritual practice and preaching because they do not understand this. So, Maharaj shares a story that how we should not underestimate the potency of the holy name. So Maharaj says, I was once told a story about a Harinam on the Arbat in Moscow. A girl came up and stood in the crowd, then suddenly started sobbing after hearing the sound of the holy name. So he shares this story. Suddenly started sobbing after hearing the sound of the holy name. She began clapping her hands, tapping her foot, and singing along. Huh? When the Harinam moved on, she followed behind, and as if spellbound, she sang along with the devotees, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. She walked, and then she came with them to the temple. In a couple of hours, she was dressed in a sari with beads in hand. It is Rupa Goswami along with Swarup Damodar and Sanatan Goswami who explained this personal spiritual experience to us and gave it a particular form. So he says that there is an explanation to this by Rupa Goswami. And this explanation is there within the first 19 chapters only. You can read in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the later chapters, what are the various explanations? When you see someone immediately taking up to Bhakti, what could be the various possibilities? All that is explained in great detail in the later chapters. Okay. Between 17th to 19th chapter, this subject matter is very clearly described. There is a story about the moment Rupa Goswami became Rupa Goswami. We chant this mantra, Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. It says that Rupa Goswami had entered the mind of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and by special mercy, he could understand what was going on in Lord Chaitanya's heart. It was at a Rath Yatra. So he's sharing, you all know this story. And year after year, during Rath Yatra, the same thing happened over and over again that nobody could understand. When the devotees pulled the chariot of Lord Jagannath, Lord Chaitanya danced in front of the chariot, repeating the strange words. Seita Parananatha Painu Yahalagi Madana Dahane Juri Genu. So, this apparently cinema song like sounding, this thing. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to chant this verse in front of Lord Jagannath's cart. Over and over again he said, I have gotten the Lord of my life for whom I was burning in the fire of lusty desires. Madana Dahane means the fire of passion. The devotees could not understand why he was saying this verse. After that, Lord Chaitanya would repeat a Sanskrit verse from the romantic collection of 100 verses by the poet Sri Amaru. So this is just like he was just a mundane poet, and he had written this collection of romantic verses. They had nothing to do with spirituality. And interestingly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would chant this. It is like some very exalted Maharaj or someone actually chanting a cinema song. So while he is alone or in front of everyone, spontaneously chanting a cinema song, what would we think actually? Actually, devotees were very sort of, curious and wonderstruck. Why is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoting this verse from by Sri Amaru? He is not a devotee, and this is just a romantic song that he has written. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would repeat this over and over again. It is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhyalila. Yak Kaumara Haras Saivahi Varas Ta eva chaitra kshapas techonmilita malati surabaya prauda kadambanila साचैवास्मि तथा तत्र सुरत व्यापार लीला विदौ रेवा रोदसी वेतसी तरुतलेत samutkantate. He was saying that the same young man who stole my heart in my youth has come back to me. These are the same moonlit nights of months of Chaitra. The month of Chaitra is a very hot month, and at night, when the full moon is shining, there is a cool breeze, and people become very peaceful. In this verse, Mahaprabhu was saying that he can smell that same fragrance of Malati flowers. He mentions fragrance here deliberately because smell has a very potency. It is able to carry us back to a situation that we have almost forgotten. I remember very distinctly that once, recently, maybe few, maybe 1 or 2 years back, I was at Govardhan Eco Village, and after Tulsi Arti, someone was offering the the scent that was offered to the Supreme Lord, and as soon as that scent was applied, I smelled that scent, and suddenly I sort of so carried. There was a very strong nostalgic feeling, and immediately I didn't. I was not following the Tulsi Arti. Maybe I was just mechanically singing, but my mind was elsewhere. I was just thinking, God, what is this smell which is very close to my heart? I this sounds so familiar. This sounds so familiar, like that, and I was so carried away because it was that the smell was very close to my heart, and Tulsi Arti got over, then Kshashtakam got over, 10 offenses got over. We started chanting, and everything I was participating, but my mind was completely gone. I was just thinking about this fragrance. What is this fragrance? It's very close to my heart. I know this fragrance, and I could not concentrate at all. And suddenly I remembered decades back, my father used to use a particular perfume. It's called in those days as Revlon. And that Revlon perfume, a particular flavor my father liked, he used to use that perfume. So, and after that, after a few years, he left. He stopped using it. But I still remember, like I used to, we all used to connect that fragrance to my father actually. So that memory was so strong that it had been decades since he had used that fragrance. But I so distinctly remembered actually. I distinctly remembered that this, it was so nostalgic. I had such a powerful nostalgia, but I could not figure it out. It took me some time for my memory to dredge out, that memory. But nevertheless, it was such a powerful. That's why here he says that in this verse, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying that he can smell the same fragrance of Malati flowers. He mentions fragrance here deliberately because smell has a special potency. It is able to carry us back to a situation that we have almost forgotten. Suddenly smelling a particular fragrance, we are transported to where we once were, even if the situation only existed in our mind. Right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, it is that same smell that was there once in my youth, and the young man that stole my heart then is back again. He says, are same smell, the same person, the same breeze is blowing, and the same fragrance of Malati flowers is wafting from the Kadamba forest, and I am the same too. Nevertheless, I am unhappy. and I want to go back again to the place of our first meeting on the bank of the Reva under a Vetasi tree. He said, everything is same, but the place is not the same. So therefore, I am not happy. I am not having the same experience. I want to get transported to that same place on the bank of the Reva under a Vetasi tree. He says, everyone honored and respected Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but no one could understand what he was saying except for Swarup Damodar, who was admitted into the depths of his heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allowed access to Swarup Damodar Goswami. He was the first to write in his memoirs who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. Right? Namo Mahavadanyaya. Of course, this Namo Mahavadanyaya was written by Srila Rupa Goswami only. Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, right? He wrote, was it Radha Krishna Pranaya Kritir Hladini Shakti Rasmad. So this verse was written by Sri Chaitanya, Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami adapted it in his Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sometime later during Rath Yatra, Rupa Goswami was there and he heard this verse. When he heard it, he returned home and wrote another verse on a palm leaf, his handwriting as even and beautiful as a string of pearls. He attached the palm leaf to the roof of his hut and then went to bathe in the ocean. So he wrote an exact explanation of what he would have meant by that. So he wrote that, kept it on his roof, and he left to take bath in the ocean. Meanwhile, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to see him, but he found no one. He went to the hut and saw the verse attached to the roof. When he read it, his hair stood on end and a shiver of ecstasy ran over his skin. He wondered, how does he know what is going on in my heart? Swarup Damodar knows because I have told him. He spends his sleepless nights with me. But Rupa Goswami has just come to Puri. So how does he know everything? He grabbed the leaf in ecstasy, embracing Rupa Goswami, who had returned from his bath. Then Mahaprabhu ran to Swarup Damodar, told him the story about the verse, and asked him, Swarup, how does Rupa know what is going on in my mind? Commenting on this story, Srila Prabhupada said that once he had a similar personal story. So the point why Maharaj is discussing this whole thing is that these acharyas were not ordinary personalities. When Raghunath Das Goswami says, Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamiha Tasyagrajamapi, it means these were the very select few people whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave access to his own heart. So these were not ordinary personalities. So therefore, when Raghunath Das Goswami says Swarupam Shri Rupam, it is not actually telling that don't remember Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Nityananda Prabhu, but the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he showed his compassion to fallen souls of the posterity of this Kali Yuga through the writings of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami for that purpose. So therefore, these were no ordinary personalities. These were like really exalted personalities whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally gave access to his own heart. Commenting on this story, Srila Prabhupada said that he had a similar personal story. Prabhupada is sharing his own story. He had written an offering to his spiritual master in the form of a poem. Right? You remember this, right? Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved, impersonal calamities thou hast removed. And as soon as this particular sentence, his spiritual master Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur was so pleased, and he said, he has understood my heart. When Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur read it, he was so pleased that he called his closest companions and servants and had them read this offering again and again, explaining to them that his intention had been understood. Srila Prabhupada asked, I wonder how I could have understood his intention. In all humility, Prabhupada speaks this. How could I have understood his intentions? It is the same question that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Swarup Damodar. I wonder how he could understand my mind. Swarup Damodar replied, he could understand only because he had received your mercy. He could not have understood it in any other way. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirmed this saying. I was so pleased with Rupa Goswami that when I embraced him near Siddha Bakul in Jagannathpur, after reading this verse, I invested him with all the Shakti needed for preaching bhakti and revealing the nature of bhakti to everyone else. Right? So that potency, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself mentions that I invested this potency in Srila Rupa Goswami. We see that Rupa Goswami understood everything by mercy. Although certainly he already had Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, the Lord further invested his spiritual Shakti or energy into Rupa Goswami so that he could explain it to us. So, therefore, if you see that every subsequent work written in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya after after Srila Rupa Goswami compiled this Bhakti Rasamrita, every subsequent work, Gaudiya Vaishnava work that has been written in our Sampradaya, actually it is based on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Either direct commentary of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu or inspired by the writings of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Whatever, either Bhakti Vinod Thakur or Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baldev Vidyabhushan, most of their works that were written subsequent to the compilation of Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu were actually inspired by Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So that is like, if there is one magnum opus compilation of our whole Sampradaya, that is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu actually. It is a historical work, and never ever in any Sampradaya such a work has ever been written actually. So that is why even Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the beginning of his Madhurya Kadambini, he writes this verse glorifying Srila Rupa Goswami. He says, Bhakti Purvai Shritastam tu rasam pashyed yadattadi tam naumi satatam rupa nama priyajanam harehe. He says that in the past, many great devotees and acharyas have practiced bhakti and achieved Krishna prem. They have practiced bhakti, achieved Krishna prem, and experienced various rasas. Some Shanta, some Dasya, some Sakya, some Vatsalya, some Madhurya. They've experienced it. And I offer my obeisances to all of them. They are great. But my special and repeated obeisances is to Srila Rupa Goswami, he says. Why especially to Rupa Goswami? Because only after Srila Rupa Goswami compiled Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, an ordinary devotee can understand what rasa is. The science of rasa, bhakti rasa, can be understood even by an ordinary devotee. He does not have to wait till he reaches prema to understand what rasa is. Even before that, while he is a sadhaka, he can at least get a glimpse of understanding what spiritual emotions are. What is bhakti rasa? Like that. Therefore, he says, Tam naumi satatam rupa nama priyajanam harehe. My repeated obeisances is to Srila Rupa Goswami, because through him everyone is now able to understand what this bhakti rasa is, like that. After saying that, Rupa Goswami understood his heart. Mahaprabhu instructed, now Swarup Damodar, go and explain everything to him. Whatever I have explained to you, you explain to him. He already understood everything. He had written that verse because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had invested him with Shakti. Nevertheless, even if we have understood everything and our hearts are overflowing with love of God, we should go to our spiritual master and hear him explain to us even what we have already understood. This is a very important point. Okay. So he says, even though, so that is what he says, that even though Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself attests that yes, I have invested in him um, uh, my own heart. I have given him the ability to understand my own heart. But still he said, now you go and instruct him. Okay. So this is the point. We should go to our spiritual master and hear him explain to us even what we have already understood. If you see in once there was a GBC meeting at Govardhan Eco Village, and many senior devotees had come, and that was like a festival of Shravanotsav. Every day, some very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada would give classes. It was so nice. One day, His Holiness Rompad Swami Maharaj was giving a class. He spoke on this verse that Vidura asked Maitreya this question that Sukaya karmani karoti lo natai sukam vanyad uparamam va vindeta bhuyasteva dukkam yadatra yuktam bhagavan vadennaha. It's a very famous verse where Vidura is asking Maitreya, my dear Maitreya, I have this doubt. Can you please answer this question? He says, Sukaya karmani karoti. In this material world, people perform activities for two purposes. One is sukha pravritti and dukkha nivritti, to enhance one's enjoyment and to destroy one's suffering. He says these are the two reasons why people perform actions. But nevertheless, even though they endeavor day in, day out for increasing their happiness, increasing their suffering, but it never happens. Natukam vanyad uparamam va. Neither does sukha increase, nor does dukkha decrease. Vindeta bhuyastata eva dukkam. But their enthusiasm to endeavor in those same activities does not seem to decrease. They are so enthusiastically engaged in activities. Why? Yadatra yuktam bhagavan vadennaha. Why is it? Why is that? So Maharaj asked this question. Doesn't Vidura know the answer for this question? He must have himself explained it to many others. He must have explained it to Dhritarashtra 1,000 times himself. So he must have explained it to so many people. Why is Vidura asking such a simple question to Maitreya? So he says, many times we may know the answer, but exalted devotees may ask simple questions to very other more exalted devotees in order to experience the power of their realizations. Maharaj explained this very beautifully. He says, we may know theory and we may have some limited realizations, and the senior devotee may give the same explanation, but it is not just the words. It comes with its own power of realization, and it has a much more deeper impact actually. Actually, that senior devotee may give the exact same answer, but because he has practiced it and he has made tangible advancement in his spiritual life, it comes with the power of his own realizations, and it has very, very deep rooted impact. So that's what he says. That therefore, Vidura does not just want to know the answer, he wants to experience the power of realization that Maitreya had. That has a very powerful impact. Like that. Otherwise, we can say that we are not this body, we are the soul. But when a very exalted personality like Prabhupada says, yeah, the whole impact is different. Even though we know it, but when the power of a more realized person, when he shares it, it has such a deep impact actually. Sometimes I was just sharing today with one devotee. We were just sharing, I was about, there is one devotee in Radha Gopinath temple. His name is Radha Gopinath Prabhu. Those of you who might know. Uh, uh, in my early days in Krishna consciousness, I used to, and even now, of course, uh, I used to hear a lot of his lectures, and it was like extremely inspiring for me. Uh, because whatever he speaks from the heart. It is directly, he relishes it, and with great realization he speaks that. And sometimes, he is very repetitive. Many times he repeats many of the things that he says again and again. But because it comes from his heart, every time you don't feel bored hearing that. You know the story, you exactly know what he's going to tell next, and you can literally guess it. But still, it is so nourishing to the heart, because uh, it is coming directly from his realization. So every time you come in touch with a strong realization of a very exalted personality, it nourishes you, even though it may be repetitive actually. So therefore, Maharaj explained that Vidura was asking such a simple question. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling Swarup Damodar Goswami, you go and instruct Rupa Goswami. But why you just embraced him and imparted him, and you have empowered him? And already Rupa Goswami has proved to the whole world that he has the ability to read your heart. Why should I go and teach him? He might ask. But he says that we should, nevertheless, even if we have understood everything and our hearts are overflowing with love of God, we should go to our spiritual master and hear him explain to us even what we have already understood. Actually, this is one of the very strong symptoms of advancement. A devotee who has not advanced very much, he thinks that now I don't need to hear from my guru. But a person who has actually advanced, he feels all the more the need to hear from his guru. So this is very contrary to popular understanding, popular material understanding, that one may think that the more one thinks that he has advanced, the more he thinks actually uh, advice is dispensable. I don't need to take advice, I don't need to take guidance, I don't need to hear from others. But in spiritual life, the more one advances, the more he thinks that I am actually very much dependent on the mercy of my guru. And when one thinks that I am not dependent, then that is a symptom of lack of advancement, actually. So that's what here he is indicating. We should do this because the spiritual master will explain what we have learned or felt in our hearts to us on the level of rational understanding. How you can understand this? Oh, this was just theory in your head. Now I will help you assimilate it in your heart. Like that is indicating. Our intuitive perception can then remain and be established in our hearts. This is a very important point that we must understand. It is the example that Rupa Goswami set for all of us. This is the contribution of our sampradaya that we cannot find elsewhere. This is the point he's telling. Right? So this is the contribution of our sampradaya that we cannot find elsewhere. Rupa Goswami has explained bhakti as rasa. In order to understand what spiritual rasa is, let us first understand what rasa is in the worldly sense. So Maharaj says, forget about understanding spiritual rasa. Let's first try to understand what rasa is in a material sense. So before we hear that and try to discuss that, based on what we have discussed last 15-20 minutes, if there are any quick comments, questions, discussions, I will pause for a few seconds to see if there is anyone raising their hands so that we can have a discussion for a while. Any comments, questions, discussions? I think today probably we might set a record. For the first time in in 31 sessions, probably no one spoke except me. That would be a complete uh, I won't say I probably a complete failure of our discussion. That already almost 1.5 hours have passed, still no one has raised their hand. This is a history in making, actually. Okay, anyway, but I won't force anyone. So, but we'll continue. Okay. Venkat Govind Prabhu is raising his hands. Yes, Prabhuji, I am unmuting you.
Prabhuji, I am asking a very silly question just to please you.
Thank you, bro.
Prabhuji, you said Reva in that Reva. Reva, does it stand for Yamuna River?
Yeah. Reva stands for Yamuna River. That's how Srila Rupa Goswami explains. Yeah. Reva stands for Yamuna River.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Anything else before we move on? Okay. So we will continue our discussion. So Maharaj says, now let's understand what is rasa is in a worldly sense. Maharaj says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is repeating a verse from a mundane Rasa Shastra. So Rasa Shastra, we have discussed this many times before. Actually, there is lot in common between material rasa and spiritual rasa. The only difference between material rasa and spiritual rasa is that material rasa is on the platform of false ego, body, and spiritual rasa is on the platform of true ego or Krishnadas. Okay, so this is the difference between material rasa and spiritual rasa. But otherwise, the way in which these rasas get triggered, okay, so otherwise there is lot in common. There is lot in common. So what is common? First thing is way in which they get triggered. This is vibhav. And there is lot of similarity in the sthai bhav also. Even in the material relationships, we do have conjugal relationships, parental relationships, fraternal relationships, servitude. All of that we have. There is lot in common. So, and then there is also how the emotions get expressed, okay, so in the form of Satvika Bhav, Sanchari Bhav, and Anubhava. So these all these Samagri Bhavas you can actually see in the material emotions also. So there is lot of common. How when emotions are triggered, how there are certain involuntary bodily response to a strong emotion. This is called as Satvika Bhavas. Sometimes tears flow from our eyes. Sometimes hairs stand on end, and sometimes our voice gets choked up. These are all involuntary bodily response to a very strong spiritual emotion, right? And sometimes we dance in joy, we embrace people in when we are in great joy and we are very happy to see them. So these are called as anubhavas. And sometimes we have many transient emotions also. We become angry out of love, like that. There are we compete with others out of love, like the gopis compete with each other. So like that, there are parallels in material emotions also. Okay, so if you see, that is why Rupa Goswami, when he compiled his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the framework of that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he took from Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. So Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra talks about, it's a material rasa shastra only. It talks about mundane rasa and how mundane rasa is actually expressed through abhinayas, mudras, and so many postures, hand gestures, facial expressions, how various rasas can be explained, can be expressed. That he explains in Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra. And Rupa Goswami took that framework of Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra and exactly used it to explain spiritual rasa or spiritual emotions actually. So if there was no similarity, why would he do it? So actually we think that material and spiritual have nothing in common. So, but it is not like that. So I will just add a slide and just to explain this. So just hold on. So I'll just add a slide here. So many times we think material and spiritual have nothing in common. We think that material is exact opposite of spiritual. But this is not true. This is contrary to popular perception. It is not true actually. So if this was the case, if matter and spirit had nothing in common, okay, then we cannot use material analogies to explain spiritual concepts. It is not possible. The very fact that throughout the scriptures, material analogies are used to explain spiritual concepts in itself says that actually matter and spirit are not that kind of opposites. So now I want you to raise your hands and share. Can you recollect some analogies from the Shastras where a material analogy is used to explain a spiritual phenomenon or a spiritual truth, something. Can you recollect? Can you please raise your hands and share? Let's try to. Yes, Anadi Akshay Krishna Prabhu, I am unmuting you.
Prabhuji, Vritrasura, he gives the 3 examples of.
He gives 3 examples to explain his love. So Vritrasur gives 3 examples, right? He gives the example of Ajata Paksha Iva Mataram Kaga, helpless birds waiting for parents. Then he talks about hungry calf waiting for mother. And he talks about morose wife waiting for husband. But these analogies are used to explain his own spiritual longing for Lord. So this is spiritual, these 3 are material, but he still uses these analogies to indicate his spiritual longing for the Lord. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Anything else anyone can recollect? Can you recollect some other material analogy is used to explain a spiritual this thing? So Gopinath Pran Prabhu has shared this. So through chat, he talks about Urdhva Moolam Adashakam. Okay, this is not direct. Actually, the Adashakam is a material tree, and that inverted tree is material universe only. But at the same time, the real tree is spiritual, right? So the real tree is spiritual. So therefore, that okay, indirectly it indicates. Okay, Nandarani Priya Mataji, I am unmuting you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, there's a verse which talks about how the moth is attracted to the lamp in Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, but that is a material example to explain a material thing.
Okay.
So that is not material to explain a spiritual thing, but definitely that is an analogy, but it is not using a material analogy to explain a spiritual thing. But thank you. Malati Mataji, I am unmuting you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, the sun rays and the sun disk.
Correct. Sun rays and sun disk. This indicates what, Mataji?
Although the sun rays, they are part and parcels of the sun disk, but they receive the light and they are illuminating. Similarly, we are part and parcels of the Lord, and we can also illuminate ourselves if we get directly connected with the Lord, and if there is no Maya in between.
Okay, correct. That is one thing. And also the sun rays and sun disk are also compared to Brahman and Bhagavan also. Or Brahman and Paramatma. Sun rays, sun disk, and the sun god. Like that example is given for explaining. Like that. Radha Sevika Mataji, I am unmuting you, Mataji. Radha Sevika Mataji. I have unmuted you. Can you unmute yourself and speak, Mataji?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, Yata Taror Mula Nisechan, that sloka.
Yeah, correct. Yata Taror Mula Nishechanena. Yeah, watering the root, worshipping Krishna is compared to watering the root, right?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Watering the root and feeding the stomach.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Worshipping Krishna is compared to watering root and feeding stomach, right? Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
thank you very much. And few more have shared through chat. There is Shaka Chandranyay. Chaitanya Prasad Prabhu says that seeing moon as being directed towards the branch of tree, this can explain how material analogies explain spiritual concepts, serving as helpful tools. Yeah, correct, correct. And Bhagavatam is explained as liquid fruit, correct, like that. See, so that's why if you see, all these are material analogies used to describe spiritual concepts. That is why Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, he says that um, uh, that the Mayavadis, they think that matter and spirit are exactly opposite. Therefore, they think that form means because form is material, therefore anything that is spirit should not have a form. Quality means material, therefore matter has qualities, therefore spirit is opposite to matter, therefore spirit cannot have any qualities, like that. But this is not true actually. So matter has material qualities, spirit has spiritual qualities. So therefore you may say that I will just add one more slide. Just hold on for a second. I'm sorry. Just hold on for a second. So I'll add just one more slide. So just like there can be one spiritual reality, so that one spiritual reality can have, there is one matter, second, third, fourth, fifth, and there could be a sixth. There are 6 different materials which may have one quality in common with this spiritual reality. So there is no one matter which shares all the qualities of a spiritual reality, but there could be some quality which is common, right? Like in the examples, the helpless birds waiting for the parent birds. Okay, in this there is a beautiful explanation given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, Vritrasur, while offering these prayers, he was thinking, I want to express to my Lord Sankarshan the intensity of my longing to be with him. So he says, I should explain to him, how do I? So he says, he thinks of the birds. Ajata Paksha Iva Mataram Kaga. Ajata Paksha means the small birds who have not developed any wings yet. So they are helplessly waiting there for their parents to come, because the owls are there. They may come and attack them. The snakes may come and eat them. So they are dependent on their parents for protection and nourishment. Okay, so the similarity is that complete helplessness, which is also called as akinchanyam. So this is called as akinchanyam. So complete protection. So they are helplessly dependent on their parents. But then Vritrasur thought, oh, but these helpless birds, they have no discrimination. They, whatever the mother bird brings and feeds, the children open their mouth and eat. So similarly, Krishna may say, okay, you are helplessly dependent on me, na? So take mukti and keep quiet. Or take swarga and keep quiet. So he says, is that what I am longing? Is that why I am longing for the association of the Supreme Lord? Yes. So he thought that, yes, I have the same kind of helplessness that the birds have for Krishna, but I don't share that lack of discrimination. I will not accept mukti, I will not accept swarga. Then he says, I should think of a better example. He says, Stanyam yata vatsatara kshudartaha. He says, oh, my love towards you, my longing towards you is like the calf, newly born calf, waiting for the mother who has gone for grazing. When she comes back, he is waiting just for her. Even though there are other things that he could eat, but he would not eat. He is waiting just for that mother's milk. Okay. So he thought, oh, this is a more appropriate example. So the calf indicates ananya gatitvam. Only milk, nothing else. Then he thought, oh, but this analogy is not complete. Why? Because the calf comes and drinks the milk, but the calf is not serving the cow in return. So there is complete helplessness, and there is dependence only on the milk. The calf will not accept anything else. Similarly, I will also accept Krishna Prem, but nothing else. But is my love towards you, O Lord, similar to that selfish calf who is only interested in drinking milk but not interested in serving in return? He says, no. It is not like that. Then he says, Priyam Priyeva Vyushitam Vishanna Manoravindaksha Didikshate Tvam. He says, Priyam Priyeva Vyushitam Vishanna. Like a very chaste wife is waiting for her husband who has gone out for some business. And she is very morose because she is missing all the services that she would do to her husband to please him. So the morose wife indicates service attitude. You see, the morose wife waiting for her husband is a material example. The hungry calf waiting for her mother is a material example. The helpless bird waiting for her parents is a material example. Okay, but whoever gave this example, Vritrasur, really good example. I think Anadi Akshay Krishna Prabhu gave this very nice example, which you can use to explain this. So the spiritual reality that Vritrasur tries to explain is his own love for Sankarshana, right? And he uses three analogies to explain this. The analogy of child birds, right? So this indicates one aspect of the love that he has, which is helplessness. Akinchanyu. Right? The second example that he gives is calf, which has another aspect of the love that he possesses, which is Ananya Gatitvam. And the morose wife, she has another aspect of that love that he possesses, which is service attitude. Right? So all these three examples in themselves are material examples only, but then they are not completely opposed. Or as Rupa Goswami also writes this verse, Yuvatinam yata yoni yunam cha yuvatau yata manobhiramate yadvat manome ramatam tvai. Like that he says. So just like a young woman is waiting, is attracted to the charms of another young man, and the young woman is attracted to the charms of another young woman. In the same way, let my heart be attracted to you, Krishna. Right? So here, there is that intensity of attraction. So that is common between Rupa Goswami's attraction for Krishna and the young man or woman's attraction for each other. Right? So that is that thing common. So in this way, he says that, so with the bird example, calf example, and the morose wife example, the three examples put together more or less to some extent describes the love that Vritrasur possesses towards Lord Sankarshan. So he says, so therefore you may say, what is the, so if you ask, what is the opposite of white color? If you ask Vaishnava, he will say black color. So this is Vaishnava's answer. If you ask a Mayavadi, what is the opposite of white color? He will say no color, colorless, right? So this is his understanding of spirit and matter. See, anything that matter has, spirit should not have. This is his assumption, but this is not true in reality actually. Matter is not that kind of different from spirit. Matter has lot of common, matter has a lot in common with spirit. That is why, throughout Shastras, material analogies are used to describe spiritual subject matters. So, like that. So here he says that there are two fundamental concepts, but Mahaprabhu has explained that bhakti is the highest sense, must ultimately lead to rasa. Right? So we were discussing that Maharaj was telling that let us first try to understand what is mundane rasa in order to understand what is spiritual rasa. So in this context, we were discussing that actually there is they are not like completely opposite like the way we think. There is lot in common. This is what we were discussing. So any quick comments regarding this theme that we have discussed? Yes, Anadi Akshay Krishna Prabhu, I am unmuting you.
Sorry, I had a question.
Yeah.
Like, if you just said that there's a lot in common between material and spiritual emotions, and very nicely you explained the different ways in which it has a lot of details which you explained, and also the aspects that how they get triggered, the sthai bhava, and how the emotions get expressed also. So I just had this question, like slightly contrary to this, is it that only in concept, I mean conceptually there is commonality, or subjectively the experience that one undergoes also there is commonality? I mean, like why I'm asking this question is that then somebody may say that I'm already experiencing, like if you're already experiencing these emotions, then what is the need for spiritual emotions? So
Okay.
like, what is the difference also should I want to understand, so that, I mean, there's an impetus for us to, I mean, there's a more stronger impetus for us to seek spiritual emotions.
Yeah, there is a difference in intensity. And there is a difference in intensity. That is why Srila Prabhupada in the preface to Nectar of Devotion. He says one of the natures of material rasa is chapala sukha, very meager intensity. So only a glimpse of what we could experience at the spiritual platform, only that we experience at the material platform. But the nature is there, similar nature is there, but the intensity is compromised. And bhoga tyaga, that is the next quality he talks about material rasa. Because there is meager pleasure, after some time we get little bit bored with it, and we think in terms of renunciation. And after that, renunciation also becomes bore, we become bored with that, and then we again go towards enjoying the same thing that we left behind. So but in the spiritual rasa, because it gives very, very tangible experience, therefore the thing of bhoga tyaga is not seen, because that sukha is not chapala sukha, but it is sandrananda visheshatma, it is a condensed bliss. So there is a difference in intensity also, and also because we are expecting to enjoy it from a temporary source. When the temporary source gets over, like when the lifetime of that person gets over, of the when the lifespan or the shelf life of that thing gets over, because we are souls, we want eternal happiness, we become it becomes dukkha yonai evate. Adyantavanta kaunteya, because there is a beginning and end, we don't we feel distressed. So therefore these are the differences. So I just focused on the similarity in order to bring out a point, but having said that, definitely there are differences also which are very significant.
Yes, Prabhuji. So can we say that the souls, like all these different points that you covered, like can we say that even in the material world there is some happiness, but it is like as we give the analogy that like in a desert, if you get a drop of water, our thirst is so much, but it is never going to get fulfilled with the material emotions.
Yeah,
That's
correct. Yeah,
so.
that's what he calls as chapala sukha.
We need to
Your voice
satisfy
is
the
breaking. Sorry, last
yes,
few
and
seconds I didn't hear properly. Can you repeat?
yes, Prabhuji. Yeah, like we need spiritual emotions which are far more intense than material emotions to actually satisfy the soul.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That is what
Correct.
can be.
Yeah, material emotions cannot satisfy
Yes,
on the
Prabhuji.
platform of soul, because they are not based on the platform of soul, they are based on the platform of body only. So they cannot really satisfy the soul actually. But there
Yes,
is a glimpse of that.
yes, Prabhuji.
Thank
Thank you, sir.
thank you very much. So any final comments before we wind up for the day? It's already 9 o'clock. So if there are no further comments, questions, so we will end here. So thank you all very much for your patient listening. And we will, just before you all wind up, one last reminder, I have already sent it also. Because initially I had Saturdays off for my Bhakti Shastri classes, but now it is not the case. Saturdays also I have, so there is no point in continuing with Saturdays. So we will, from next week onwards, we'll have it on Tuesday, which means in 2 days time. Today is Saturday, so Sunday, Monday, after 2 days again, we will again meet for continuing this discussion. So please note it down in your calendar. I'll again send you a reminder on Tuesday. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad ki jai, Shri Manas Siksha ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.